Okay, sorry for the delay, but I want to welcome each of you that is showing up here for our information session on the DOD Smart Scholarship. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I just have 2 slides for you all before we get into the meat of the session. Okay, I'm hoping that you guys can see that slide. Again, this is the Department of Defense DOD Smart Scholarship Info Session. We are sponsored by Florida A&M Title III program and the NASA BPAE, and that's for broadening participation of aerospace engineering, which is a MURAP grant through NASA. For today, we have 4 participants and an agenda for you. Dr. Thiago Szymanski is going to present for you today on what exactly is the DOD Smart Scholarship. He is a research electrical engineer at Naval Surface Warfare Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We have Danielle Carr. She is a ME graduate student here at the Florida A&M, Florida State University College of Engineering. Modeling for us online, we have Rita Arnell. She's our graduate studies program administrator. If you have questions about the graduate program here, you can put those in the chat and she'll be happy to answer. And I am Dr. Carl Moore, and I'm the Title III Graduate Engineering Director. So welcome, everyone. Before we get started, I just want to briefly give you all a bio on our speaker today. Dr. Thiago Szymanski is a smart scholar that currently serves as a research electrical engineer at the Naval Surface Warfare Center in Philadelphia. His work focuses on real-time simulations and HIL experiments to de-risk future platforms. Thiago received his PhD in electrical engineering from the FAMU-FSU College of Engineering, where he completed his dissertation work on the accuracy assessment of multi-port PHIL simulations under Dr. Misha Stuer and Dr. Sastry Pamidi at the Center for Advanced Power Systems, or CAPS. So Dr. Thiago, I'm going to bring up your slides now, and you can get started. After we finish, you guys will have plenty of time for questions and answers. All right, so take it away.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure. Yeah, my name is Thiago Szymanski. Feel free to call me Thiago. It's like Chicago without the second C. So I just graduated from the College of Engineering there last summer, and I was a smart scholar for about 3 years, or about 4 years actually, 3.5 years when I was there. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience through it. I had a pretty positive experience. I really liked the program. I wish I knew more about it when I, maybe I was an undergraduate or earlier in my graduate studies. But just a disclaimer, I'm not being paid by Smart. I'm not a Smart employee, which is kind of nice because I can be a little bit more honest maybe on things that maybe they can't. But also at the same time, right, there's like things that I might say that maybe they have a different view on that. So don't take anything I say here like, oh, Smart told me this, right? This is my opinion of the program, my experience through it, and some of the advice I have. I can probably skip the next slide too, just like a little outline, but yeah, so a little bit about me. So the name comes from Brazil. I was born in Brazil. I lived in Brazil until I was about 11, and I moved to Michigan. I went to undergraduate at Michigan State. And when I was at Michigan State, I kind of got involved in research, and I really loved it. So I was just like, I think I want to keep doing this. I think I want to go to graduate school. And at the time, I kind of like did an internship at that company. I'd seen the academic side. And there was also a Department of Energy lab at Michigan State. And I really liked it. So I was like, I think I kind of want to go somewhere that has a collaboration with, labs like the Mag Lab and CAPS and all the different opportunities that you have, at the College of Engineering down in Tallahassee. So I picked Tallahassee after I visited, and I really liked it. And in 2017, I was kind of going through this transition where I was going from being at the Mag Lab to switching over to CAPS. And at the time I was looking at like maybe different scholarship opportunities, different grants that not only will maybe give me a little bit more flexibility on the work I was doing, but also will look good in my resume, right? And I kind of came across the SMART program, right? Just found it online while looking for things. And it seemed really interesting to me because I think a lot of the different scholarships were like, yo, here's $1,000, spend it on books. Here's $5,000, here's your tuition, whatever it is, right? But this one felt more like we're trying to invest in your career, in your future as an engineer. And I was like, oh, this seems really interesting. You know, they're giving me these internship opportunities. They're, you know, setting me up with a mentor. They're setting me up with like future career possibilities. But at the time, I was a little bit hesitant because there's a service commitment attached to it. And I'll explain what that is later. But I figure, hey, I'm going to give this a shot. Seems like a really good opportunity. And if I end up not liking it, worst case scenario, I'm kind of forced to work for the government, right, for a couple of years. And then I can go back to private industry, academia, whatever it is. Luckily, you know, I ended up really liking it so far. So let's keep fingers crossed that it stays that way. Next slide, please. So my current role in NSWC, Naval Surface Warfare Center in Philadelphia, I'm a research electrical engineer. I work with power, research, and development. Essentially, you can think, you know, a ship is kind of like a mini microgrid, it's like a mini city. And what we're doing is we're making sure everything works the way it's supposed to work. Every time you want to upgrade something, it kind of behaves how it is. I'm more on the modeling and the physical hardware test siding of things. And so yeah, I work on different programs that, you know, are looking at controls, are looking at putting new equipment. A lot of my work in the future now coming the next year and two are going to be on efficiency. You know, how do we make these things more green? How do we make them better for the environment, right? Because that's something that we really have to take into account. Kind of why I wanted to go into research in the first place is to look into those kinds of things. And my PhD focuses on PHIL. Don't really have to know much about what it is. It's just kind of a technique that CAPS does a lot. But one of the cool things that SMART started recently is if you get a PhD through SMART, or even in some cases, if you get a master's degree through SMART, you're allowed to become your own PI after. You have to apply as like an external grant now received, but I was awarded that. So essentially, you know, I have this $375,000 for the next 3 years to do my own research in these labs, right? So it's kind of cool that early in your career, you're allowed to be your own PI and kind of conduct your own research, which is an opportunity that, you know, some of my coworkers don't really have. They have to go externally for grants, but you can imagine with the government, knowing sponsors, you know, and the Pentagon and Congress are a lot difficult, especially when you're like freshly starting out. And another thing that I did, I kind of became the SMART division representative. So it's about maybe 10 people in my command. Oh, PI started like private investigators. So like you can think of like your professors, right? So someone that's leading a research group. Sorry about that. Yeah, I got into this bad habit when I first met people from the Department of Defense. I was like, I hate all the acronyms you use. And slowly over time, I'm using more and more. So yeah, please just put a chat or let me know if I say anything and you don't know what it is. But so I'm kind of in the process now. I help select the new applicants in Philadelphia. So it kind of gave me some good insight, I think, on this process recently. So that's what I'm hoping to share more with you. Of course, I'll tell you what the program is, but there's some key points in case you are interested in the program that I think could really help you out. And we can have further discussions if you think this is right. It's not for everyone, I understand, right? But if you're interested in something like this. So next slide, please. So what is SMART? So SMART is kind of like a competitive internship, or not internship, scholarship fellowship program. The Department of Defense has been doing it since 2006. Every year, starting in August until December, they open application cycle. You fill this application online. And the idea is they want to do a better job recruiting and retaining people that work in the STEM fields in the Department of Defense. So they're thinking of, hey, if we invest in you at an earlier age, it will be easier for you to see what we do, because there's so many barriers, right, that come along with it that you might not understand. You can't just Google a lot of these things to understand what we do in Philadelphia. So it lets you see at an earlier age what they do to kind of get accustomed to it. Next slide, please. I think I have. Yeah, so what do you get out of it? So the benefits that come with it, is your tuition's paid for, and there's no limit to how much of your tuition, how much tuition costs. So there's no upper cap as far as I'm aware, and I'm pretty sure that's very right. Also, if there are some of you that are maybe undergraduates and are thinking of going for a master's, you don't have to be accepted into your master's yet. You can apply and say, these are the schools I'm planning on going to, and then you can select your school later. The only requirement is you have to be a full-time student, so you cannot be part-time. And I remember when I was down there at FSU, there's like this weird, it's like the rules, right? The university, like I think a graduate student is 9 credits for full-time and undergraduate is 12. But if you have an external internship or fellowship, they make you actually sign up for 15 if you're an undergraduate, 12 if you're a graduate. So you do have to make sure you're following the rules of the university and of SMART, but make sure you're working with your department, right? You can take maybe some classes, like you can take supervised research, you can take something like that. Make sure you're working with your department if you think it's gonna be too much of a workload being full-time and you want it to drop a little bit low. I've had some pretty good experiences with them. So they cover your tuition. They give you $1,000 a year to cover some of your book costs. You don't need to provide, a receipt or anything. You just really a check for $1,000 and then a check for $1,200 to help cover some of your health cost benefits. They also give you an annual stipend on top of it. And so for an undergraduate, I believe this year, I looked this up recently, I think it was $25,000 for an undergraduate, $33,000 if you're working on your master's, and $38,000 if you're working on your PhD a year. And you also have the $2,200 on top of it. And I guess their idea is that they want to make sure you don't have to worry about working, or doing things on the side to cover your living expenses. They really just want to focus on you going to school, graduating, learning the skills you're going to need to then become an engineer, computer scientist, mathematician, whatever it is that you're going to be for the government later. And the part that really attracted me was this whole idea is they partner you up with a sponsoring facility and they identify someone, so someone like me that works full-time with a sponsored facility, and you become a mentor, or they become a mentor to you. So you can go to them to questions, they can kind of teach you about what's life like there, they can introduce you to people that might know, hey, there's this conference going up, or maybe look at this paper, or maybe learn this skill. They're also going to be your primary point of contact. So with a scholarship, they expect you in the summers to spend 8 to 12 weeks in your sponsored facility doing an internship. They do pay you. I believe if you live more than 50 miles away, I don't know the exact number, I believe it's 50 miles away from your sponsored facility, they give you like an additional stipend on top of your stipend for your travel costs. And the idea is once you're done with school, you're going to go work for whatever your sponsored facility is, right? So for example, in my case, they pay for my tuition for 3 years. Now that I graduated, I agreed to work at this Navy Facility Center for 3 years, right? So at the end of 3 years, I can stay working there, and that's what they hope I do, right? Stay working there forever or long term. But at the end of 3 years is my decision whether or not I'm going to stay there, right? And that's where the service agreement comes in. So it's a 1-to-1. And that was the thing that kind of made me hesitant at first, but at the same time, once I started, as I was applying for the program, I had a lot of friends that were also applying for jobs, and it also seemed very stressful. So that kind of took some of the worry off of me, right? So that's what I say, it's not for everyone, but for me, it was a good fit. Next slide, please. Now, there are some requirements. Other requirements are online. I just want to highlight a couple of them. You can go just search SMART program. You do have to be a US citizen in order to qualify for the program. They also accept if you're a UK citizen, Canadian citizen, New Zealand, and Australia, I believe are the 5. Yeah, I'm pretty sure those are the 5. There might be more, but I know those 5 for sure. You have to be 18 years or older at the first day that your scholarship will start. So if you apply this year, it will be August 1st, 2023. You have to be 18 years old. And through the entire program, you have to maintain a GPA of 3.0. So you're going to have to send your transcript in every semester that you do, and you just kind of keep tabs on it. If it goes below, you don't automatically get kicked out. I think you get put on some kind of probation, but you just have to make sure you're maintaining the minimum GPA. And of course, your degree has to be in a STEM field. Next slide, please. So in STEM, I think science, technology, engineering, and math, most of you maybe will qualify under it. And these aren't all of them. So for example, statistics clearly falls under math, but is not specifically listed. So if maybe you're doing a specific type of engineering that doesn't really fit in here, that doesn't mean it's not. But that's one of the questions I will say, go to SMART for it and ask them rather than someone like me, right? I would probably say, yeah, it's STEM, but I'm a very like open person to what's considered STEM or not. Next slide, please. Oh, we can actually skip this slide. I don't think it's as important because I think what I really want to focus on is kind of like you guys are probably more interested if you want to look more into this. What is the application like? And this is the thing that I think it can give you some more insight. So the application window happens every year from August to December. This year is December 1st. So really, I should say August to November because you really don't have much time in December to get it done. And it's all done online. And what you do is you upload a personal statement, you upload your transcript, you upload 2 to 3 references. The references are done separately. They do like your professor or whoever's writing a reference will upload it themselves. You don't have to worry about it. You're also going to list, like, do you have any leadership, any volunteering experiences? Do you have any publications, any presentations? My advice on that is like, don't think of presentations as things that maybe you wore a suit and you presented in front of like IEEE, in a very formal setting. If you gave a good presentation in a class, if you gave a presentation in one of your groups, maybe you're part of the robotics club and you gave list those, right? There's nothing saying that you can. Those still look good for you. So make sure you're listing, like, don't think, oh man, but I didn't present, at this national conference. That's okay, right? And once you've completed the application, there's an evaluation board of people that are typically professors, industry, anyone can sign up. So if you have any professors that you're interested, you think they will be good at this, they can sign up to be an evaluator. And they essentially look at applications they receive. Each person receives a certain number of applications. It's all randomly selected. And they evaluate the student, let's say from 0 to 100. And then multiple people evaluate the same person. So it's not just one person, it's multiple people evaluating it. And they're going to make some kind of decision on who they thought were the best applicants. So that part I'm not as familiar with, right? Because that's all done from the SMART side. But they make some kind of selection on, well, this who we think should be our semifinalists. And they take those semifinalists and they give the list and all the application material to all the different sponsoring facilities. So then each sponsored facility does something kind of different. I was part of the Philadelphia process last year. I can tell you a little bit of kind of how we did it. What we do is we get together, there's about 10 of us, and we go over all the applications. We kind of highlight who we thought were really interesting. Some places don't do interviews at all. Some places do very formal interviews. My experience when I was applying, I think I had 3 different interviews of different people that I talked to. But what I did in Philadelphia and my experience was when I was applying, it was a lot of them were like informal interviews. They were more along the lines of like, hey, I've already looked at your application material. I thought you were a really good candidate. Now I want to see, are you going to be a good fit here and where, right? So maybe if you're interested in something that I'm not familiar with or something that I don't do, I want to make sure you're going to go somewhere happy, right? Because at the end of the day, I care about people being happy, right? Like I care about you as a student being happy and this benefiting you. I understand this is a program to like recruit quality people for the Department of Defense, but I don't want to recruit people and them not be happy at the end of the day, right? I want to make sure they're being recruited and happy with it. And then we go through this process, interviews, maybe not. And awards are sending out sometime in April. I remember I received mine on April Fool's Day because it was kind of funny. I remember like getting my email and being like, okay, like interesting day to send it. But sometime in April, then you can choose to accept it or not. And in May, they essentially, if you do accept it, SMART's gonna pay you to go to your sponsor facility for 1 or 2 days, maybe even a week, to kind of see what the work there gets done. Right. And that's your chance to then interview your sponsor facility, right? That's your chance to be like, hey, like, what kind of work am I going to be doing here? Like, what are the labs? If I'm interested in labs, like, what do you offer for this? So if you do apply and you do get accepted, make sure you use the site visit because nothing is finalized until after the site visit. And then you make a decision whether or not you're happy with this and you want to go through the program. If you accepted it, starting in August, that's when your stipend will start coming in. That's when your tuition will start getting paid in for however many years you put in your application. So next slide, please. And some more of the application insights that I really wanted to give out is I really wanted to highlight how strong your personal statement is. So if you are doing this application, focus on that, I would say, a lot. So tell a little bit about yourself, maybe talk about your goals, why you think this would be a good fit. And it doesn't have necessarily, so when I was applying, I wasn't 100% sure I wanted to work, right, for the Department of Defense. I wasn't exactly sure where I wanted to be after I graduated. But I focus on things like I have a lot of passion for mentoring. I have a lot of passion for outreach. And those are things that, you know, I felt like the government allowed me to do, right? Like, so for example, today I can come here and talk to you guys and they're very supportive of it, right? They're like, yes, please talk about it, rather than, you know, maybe in a private industry, not so much, right? So I kind of focus on those things about me. There's people that focus, you know, maybe a time where you had to go when you completed, right? I remember looking at an application, someone say, hey, I'm a power lifter. I never thought I could do it, but, you know, I lifted like 3 times my body weight, right? And it was something that I worked for. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, hey, like, you know, I grew up from a military family, blah, 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 right? Talk your story and make sure you focus on that. And my other advice would be use the resources that you have available for you, right? Like universities cost a decent amount of money, right? I was just in there not that long ago, even with SMART. Use your career center, use your writing center, right? Use your advisor, maybe your professors, because your personal statement is only 1 or 2 pages long. If you have a professor you really like, see if they're willing to take a look at it, see if they have any suggestions, right? Maybe a friend, significant other, whoever, right? Make sure people are reading it and listen to their advice, right? Because this part is pretty significant, right? Like the story you're telling is definitely the most important part of this application, I will say, in my opinion, right? Again, not SMART's official opinion, but in my opinion. Also, the hardest part that I had when I was selecting was the sponsoring facilities. So as part of the application, you need to list 5 different facilities that you might want to work at. And it's somewhat hard for you to determine what those facilities are. SMART has been doing a much better job online. They now kind of have a database telling you like the kind of students that go to each facility. So you can see like if I'm a biochemical engineer, or if I'm doing chemical engineering, what facilities normally take SMART students that are those. And then of course you make decisions, right? Based on preferences. Maybe you don't want to live in the West Coast because it's too far and your family lives in Florida. So do that, try Googling things. So if there are things you're really passionate about that you're planning on writing your personal statement. So if you're passionate about robotics, neural networks, whatever it might be, just do a quick Google search and say, hey, like what is the Department of Defense? What is the Army? What is the Air Force doing in neural networks? See if anything pops up, right? Because I'll be honest with you, I can try helping you too. Like I'd be happy to answer emails, but I still don't know, right? I will have to do the same thing, right? So make sure you're kind of doing that research, because at the end of the day, just because you don't select a facility on the top doesn't mean that you won't go there, right? If you're a good fit, you might still go there. But you listing a facility kind of shows, oh, this person knows that we do hardware in the loop in Philadelphia. So, you know, this person clearly did their research on this. So, wow, we're impressed by this. And the last little tidbit is references. Is if you do decide you want to apply for something like this, don't wait until the last minute to ask for references, right? Normally professors, whoever, they're pretty busy. I will do it as early as possible and then maybe give them a little outline of what you think your personal statement is going to be, give them a little bit of introduction on what the program is so they can write a good reference and, you know, like set yourself up for success, I guess. Next slide, but I believe this might be it. Yeah, there's an official SMART webinar coming up on October 20th. If any of you guys are interested, that one's like an official one that SMART's presenting about what the program is all about. I can send you guys a link to it if you guys are interested. But so that won't be much more formal than this, I'm sure. But if not, they apparently I haven't actually been on their YouTube page much, but I know last time I talked to SMART, they were really selling it, that they've been putting more and more material on their YouTube page, like tips and like for your application. They have, you know, people talking about their experiences on YouTube. So that's something that you might want to check it out. You're also free to email me. I'll put my email in the chat. I'll give you my FSU email because my government email sometimes block things coming from outside the government. But my email is just tms13d@myfsu.edu. So if you guys ever have any questions for me, again, some of the things are probably, if it's, something like, hey, like my application, this isn't working, I won't be able to help, of course, go through SMART for all of that. But if you guys have any questions about my experience some more, or if you want me to like help you with anything, yeah, I'd be happy to. And I believe that's it. If you guys have any extra questions.
Yeah. Dr. Szymanski, thanks. That was great. You went through a lot of information there. We really appreciate it. Danielle's here. You know her, so we're gonna have her present a little bit. Danielle, do you have things you want to add to what was said? Okay. Okay. So let's see if there's any questions right now, and I'll pull her slides and cover some of those things. I do think we have something here in the chat. Oh wait, that's just his email address. Thank you. And let me see, anybody else? Any questions in the room from the face-to-face people? Okay. There's a question regarding the various sites and finding locations, and Danielle does have some slides on that. Let me go ahead and bring that up. Dr. Szymanski, do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, for sure. I actually be really curious on what Danielle, since she went through it maybe more recent than me, if any of the improvements they've done, if they've helped or how she kind of went through it. My experience was, so CAPS does a lot of work with the Navy, and the CAPS director used to work at the Office of Naval Research. So I kind of went to him and I said, hey, these are the kind of things I'm interested in. And he kind of gave me some suggestions on the sites. So mine ended up being a little bit Navy specific, right? But I also know there's other places in the College of Engineering. So we did some work with the, there's the wind tunnel, right around the College of Engineering that does work with the Air Force, with the Army. So talking to people is an option. Another option is, like I said, just try Googling certain things. So if there's things that you want to work with in the future, right? Robotics, biomedical research, whatever it is, just try doing a Google search and seeing what comes up. I think those are pretty good. I think a lot of the sites, from what I've seen, maybe don't give us specific details on the projects, but they definitely give a nice broad overview. So I would just recommend doing those at first. Yeah, and to Jonah's question, really quick, yes, the program is available for graduate school as well. The requirement is you need to have at least 1 year in order, like sponsored by SMART. So for example, if you start in August, you need to at least have 1 full year. And I think the idea behind it is they want to make sure everyone does at least 1 internship at their like facility before they agree to come on board, right? So it gives you a chance to go there and work.
Right, and let me see. Oh, do you have another one? Go ahead. The question is, Dr. Szymanski, did you get your PhD here at the college?
Did I get my PhD? Where, sorry?
At the college, FAMU-FSU College of Engineering?
Yeah, I did. So I started with physics. So I got my master's in physics at FSU, and then I got both a master's and a PhD in electrical engineering from right there. Yeah, and regarding Will's question about would it be best to apply later in regards to GPA, coursework, internship experience, there's no limit to the number of times you can apply. You can try applying now and then apply next year and kind of use a similar application. So there isn't like a limit. If you apply this year and you don't get it, you're still eligible to apply next year and the year after. So it doesn't hurt you if you don't think if you think you want to decide if it's not right or wrong for you, and you don't want to apply, that's fine. One of the things I'll recommend too, a lot of the sponsoring facilities have just internship programs. So I know the Navy does NREP. I don't know what it stands for, but NREIP. And essentially, it's the internship part of SMART. You just go on board as an undergraduate student for 10 weeks, and you kind of get assigned with a sponsoring facility. I think that's how, in my view, I've seen a lot of people come through SMART, is they do an internship first. It's a Department of Defense lab. They enjoy it. They really like what they were doing. And then they go, hey, now I'm going to see if SMART is willing to pay for my whole tuition, because, you know, I was planning on joining them on board after I graduate anyways. And Kayla?
He can't hear you. Maybe just speak up a little bit. I can tell him if he doesn't hear you. Yeah. Right. Dr. Szymanski, did you hear that question?
I did not, sorry.
Okay, let me go ahead and just restate it for those other people online. Most graduate students, it's customary that they do a lot of their research over the summer. So will that, if it's required that they be at a DOD facility in the summer, may that delay their graduation dates?
Yeah, no, I think that's a very, very good question. So I think for PhD students, typically they try, your sponsoring facility wants you to graduate and be working as quickly as possible, right? So I think they try working with you. In my experience, the first summer I went, we tried setting something up for me where I was working with some amplifiers and kind of similar to the work I was doing. It didn't quite work out, but it was fine. I still learned a lot. And then COVID happened for me, and I kind of got lucky, and I did my internships a lot virtually at the time. So a lot of it was just focused. I was pitching them ideas that align with my PhD already. But it's very dependent. Like, I can't say, yes, they will 100% work with you to make sure you're working on something related to your dissertation that you can put in there, or no, they won't, right? It depends on who your, like, essentially who your boss is at that point. I think for the most cases, what I've seen from students is they do try working with you as much as they can. So it depends, right? Like, if you have things that you have to do at FAM or at FSU, and you have to be there in person, that's going to be a limiting factor. But if it's something maybe computer wise that you can, you know, write some code while you're there, they'll probably be happy for you to just do that while you're there and doing something on the side.
Great.
But yeah, no, that's a valid concern. You can delay your graduation slightly.
Yeah. You also have a question in the chat from Kalia, and I'll just read it for those in the room that might be able to see it. She's a fourth-year industrial engineering scholar and wants to know, how is the work environment at the DOD facilities?
Yeah, so of course it's gonna vary, right, facility to facility. I think what kind of attracted me to government work, to be honest, maybe being in graduate school, was a little bit of the work-life balance. I really like that. I think there might be on the end, like in some additional slides that I put in there, some of like what SMART claims are, like the benefits of working for the federal government, right? Like, typically your job stability is a little bit better. You work, your hours are pretty set. So I'm what they call a max flex schedule. I work 80 hours every 2 weeks. I make up those hours whenever I want, and 40 of those hours can be working from home, right? But it depends on the facility. Some facilities are different. But personally, I found that my, sorry, cat just ran into the room and stormed in front of me. But what I found is that it's a little bit relaxed, but also I think gives you opportunity if you want to work hard. I really like my facility because it's, you know, they really are trying to set me up for success. I feel like there's a lot of people that are behind me, helping me establish the things, like the ideas that I have, saying, hey, I kind of want to set up some of these amplifiers. I kind of want to do some things. And I've been getting a lot of support from it. But right, it depends on, I know another code within me, for example, they travel a lot. Traveling is not really my thing. I'm a 6'6", so getting on planes is kind of hard. Well, it's not hard for me, but it's not the most comfortable thing, right? But for example, they travel a lot. They essentially are the code that are in charge of going around to ships and seeing, if something's broken on it, they go and they fix things. And so they get to travel a lot. So if that's something that you're really interested in, right, that work-life balance is going to be very different than me that's doing a lot of, MATLAB coding and working on amplifiers.
Right, right. Thank you. Another question. If you want to do a postdoc after your PhD, is that possible if you're a DOD Smart Scholar?
So unfortunately, you're not until after your service agreement is over. What they did start is that Smart Seed program. If you're interested, I can send you more detail about it, which is kind of like you funding your own postdoc in a way, right? So you get up to $125,000 a year. You do have to apply. You're not guaranteed. So that's if you get a PhD through SMART, or if you're a master's student and you're part of an underrepresented group, both of those qualify for it. And essentially, you're getting this money to fund your own research and kind of like create your own postdoc. There's nothing saying, after your service agreement is done, if you want to do a postdoc somewhere else, you're free to. And there's a lot of people that work with me that are they do a lot of academia work, right? So I still work with FSU quite often. I still work with the College of Engineering, that FAMU-FSU College of Engineering quite often. There's someone that works here and they have a professor at Penn, and they're kind of doing essentially a postdoc because they're working half time with the professor at Penn on research, but it benefits the Navy. So there's some leniency, I think, depending on the group that you're in, but I can't give you like, a definitive, like, yes, like they will work with you to make something happen.
Okay, let me share Danielle's slides to see, maybe it'll generate some additional questions or answer some. So let's see.
Hello, everyone. I've been recently got awarded the DOD Smart Scholarship in April. I'll be telling you the significance that I personally needed going through the application process. So this is a slide just telling me what SMART is, but skip that. We can skip that one as well.
Okay. Some of this has been covered.
Okay.
So.
So just to reiterate, your personal statement is the most important piece of your application and my as well, because I did go to a webinar after my board of DOD Smart Scholarship, and there was a reviewer, evaluation person who looked over applications for the first part before you get your semifinalist application, who said that she also looked to see what your life was like outside of school. So although you're highlighting your school, what you do in school, she also wants to know what you do in your community. So just having that community service, having leadership roles, teamwork experiences, all that is super important. And one thing I did for my application or my personal statement is highlight why I'm passionate about mentoring students. So I come from a very urban area in South Florida where a lot of people think they can only make it by doing sports. And I wanted to show that there's a different way where you can also have equal opportunity, and there's more to life than just trying to make it out of where you live through sports. So I'm very big on mentoring as well, and I've also done some tutoring opportunities. So I just made sure to highlight that. So if you're doing anything like that, or if you have any, go to a church and you do a lot of service there, make sure you highlight those experiences so that you see what your personality is other than what you do. So one of the things I want to highlight that appears to be focused on is choosing your sponsoring facility. So some of the things to consider are facility mission, that they are looking for, how your research is being aligned with the facility mission, and if the location is the right fit for you. So one of the things we're showing here.
I can't hear you as well.
So one of the things I'm showing here is just a screenshot of what you'll see on the sponsoring facility part of the website. So they tell you what facility is which with the colored pins. So I clicked on Naval Surface Warfare Center in Maryland. So if you go over each of the pins, they'll tell you how many scholars they've accepted since a certain year. So this one says 95 scholars since 2007. I think that's a pretty high rate for you to be selected. So you kind of try to look for the bigger numbers when you're going through these pens. And if you see that, then you click on the pen and you'll see all of the other information that'll be helpful for you. But one thing to help you get through that is just going through the map filter. So if you know what degree level you're going through, you pick that to just narrow down your choices, and also pick your STEM disciplines and narrow down your choices so that you actually get facilities that are moving for you. So next we have this one. So it shows the facility information. Sorry. It shows the facility information and the sponsoring service. So again, that's Navy. It tells you what degrees they're looking for, and then it tells you the priority STEM disciplines. So for me, I'm a mechanical engineer, and that's listed. So I know I'd have at least a chance of getting into this facility. Other things that you want to look at is the facility description, which tells you what their specific mission is. So if you have research that aligns with it, or if you're interested as an undergraduate in the research that they're currently conducting, I would say, okay, try for this facility. Another thing that you also want to look at is the scholars by degree, because it tells you over time how many people that they've taken from either whatever degree level you have. So you have a high level of bachelor students that are getting selected by this facility because they're at 41.1%. And you also have a high percentage, at least for PhDs, at 28%. So that means looking at those numbers, you just kind of decide whether or not you'll have a good chance of being selected at this facility. So that's one thing I wanted to highlight when you're going through the application process. And then of course, just going through everything, you rank it like Dr. Szymanski said. He already touched on this. So these are the award statistics for the cohort year 2022, which I'm part of. This is on the website, smartscholarship.org, if you guys want to look for any other supplementary material. But one thing I wanted to highlight for this year is that 46.89% of bachelor students who applied were selected as a Smart Scholar, and then 26.56%. And I think that's a pretty high number compared to their 2021 cohort statistics, which you can also find on the website. So they're trying to increase the amount of students that they bring into these smart facilities. So I do think that's helpful as well. So now I'll talk about my experience, at least so far. There's 4 phases when you're going through the Smart Scholarship Program. So you have phase 0, 1, 2, and 3. You have the pre-award, which is where you're doing all your documentation, you're accepting the award. You have an orientation, and then you do your site visit. And if your sponsoring facility requires security clearance, then you go through that process as well. And then phase 1, you do your academic pursuit. That's basically when you're just doing your classes and you do your internship throughout that phase, and you report every year. And phase 2 is your actual service commitment. So after you've completed your degree, now you're working for the DOD at the sponsoring facility. And then post-service is, as Dr. Szymanski said, they're trying to get you to stay there or you can go elsewhere. So I'm a part of cohort 2022 with the sponsoring service of the Navy, and I am also at the Naval Surface Warfare Center in Philadelphia Division. My site visit was 1 day in the summer, and during that site visit, they kind of just bring out the people who work there for a long time. They give you an introduction to what they actually do at the facility, as well as you are assigned a mentor. And that mentor gives you a tour of the facilities, or the tour of the facility where you may work. So for me, I was shown a lot of robotics because I am in dynamic systems. Yes, thank you. I'm within dynamic systems, so I went and I saw a lot of robots that they're working on. And he also gave me a tour of the ship that they kind of rebuild on site. So that was pretty cool to see how they are doing the work and then how they will apply it. And you also submit a site visit report right after. So that's what Dr. Szymanski said when you're saying if you like the site yourself, if you think you'd be a good fit there. After all of that is done and you reconfirm that you're going to go to the site visit or you're going to go to this sponsoring facility, sorry. You have an onboarding call, and they kind of go over all of your award details with you again, just to confirm everything. And then you prepare for phase one. So I'm kind of in the middle of phase 0 to phase 1 because I've already accepted my award again, and I'm going through the academic pursuit right now. So that's been my experience so far. This is my email if you do have questions. Are there any questions? Yes.
So let's say get an internship at a certain location. Let's say you want to get an internship to finish. Can you have to work at that location for that, or can you go to the location, let's say, Ohio, want to work?
Restate it for Dr. Smith.
I'll answer based on my knowledge, and then he can give you the official answer. So I would say for your internships, you work at the sponsoring facility that you chose, or that has chosen you. And then once you're done with your internships and you're done with your graduate degree, I believe, or whatever degree you're going for, I believe that you can talk to them to change facilities afterwards, or you may have to stay at that sponsoring facility. So maybe Dr. Szymanski can answer you about afterwards. But for your internship, I will be like, for my internships, I go to the sponsoring facility that chose me. So can you see?
Dr. Szymanski?
Yeah, so again, I can give you an official answer, right? Like as it comes from SMART, can tell you my experience. I know people that have come on board in Philadelphia and they were working for a code that it wasn't exactly what they wanted to do. And they figured that out either through their first internship or once they came on board. And they, at least in Philadelphia, they were pretty willing to change it to someone else. So for example, one person I can think in mind, he came in and he was really interested in cybersecurity. And he was really doing more IT work though, right? He was like essentially just like setting up people's computers, and he's just like, this isn't what I want to do. And they're like, oh, sorry about that. And then he identified a group that he did want to work with. And then, you know, he essentially just switched groups within that. Switching facilities, I'm sure it's doable. I think what it's going to have to be is you're going to have to make some kind of connection with someone else. And because realistically, SMART comes at no cost to the sponsoring facility until you come on board, right? So for example, Danielle right now, like whoever her boss is not actually paying it, is the Department of Defense that's paying her stipend, right? It's not coming straight from Philadelphia. So they want you to be happy. I'm sure they'll work with you. Officially, I don't know what the answer is. Officially, they might have something in the handbook saying you kind of are required to stay there. From my experience, I've known of at least 3 or 4 people that have changed codes and are much happier after they change codes, right? Because they maybe weren't working exactly what they wanted to. And at the end of the day, right, they want you to stay. So they know if you stay at a place and you're not happy at the end of your service commitment, you're just going to leave, right? So they rather have you stay somewhere else than not. But
Okay. Let's see. I don't see any additional questions online. Any more questions in the room? Go ahead.
Yeah, how long? So the personal statements, 350, 300, 3,500, 7,000, or I mean, about 500 to 1,700 words. It's a really big margin. How long was your personal statement?
Up to the 7,000 here. I took everything.
Very long.
All right, so the question in the room was, there's a wide margin for the number of characters that you can have in your personal statement. And Danielle replied that she used the maximum number for hers, so she went right up to the limit.
yeah, I think I did too. I think one of them, if you are a PhD student, by the way, another tip I want to give you is remember whoever's evaluating your application might not be in your field or your specific subject area. Keep it broad. You can go into details, of course, at the end, but make sure you can be understandable by someone that's not, you know, your advisor. And I do think I remember for the one that says like highlight your research and blah blah blah. I even had to like delete a couple words in the end because it was a little bit too long. But
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Towards the end, I actually did have to end up deleting a lot just to make sure that I was within the margin. But I would say try to explain everything. So that's kind of me as a graduate student, because that's when I applied. There's extra that you have to, that they ask for you to answer in your personal statement. So that's kind of what took up the space, but also just making sure that you're highlighting you're articulating your soft skills. Really.
Do you have any other questions?
So, I plan right now, is if my major people, my bachelor's in English, how would that be?
You know, the agreement. So the agreement is going to be. And then you go through your sponsor facility, they do have all those agreements to get.
Can you restate the question for the audience? Here, I mean, on the computer. You don't know what you just answered. Okay.
I mean, it was just, I was trying to.
So the question was, how would a bachelor's to master's degree correlate with the program?
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think in the application you can highlight that. I'm not exactly sure, sorry, maybe there's a question that's better.
Well,
Danielle seems like she answered as well, she might be aware of that answer.
anyone else? Yes, ma'am. Dr. Szymanski, you have a question. How does the stipend and things like travel work if you have dependents? So for example, if you're married or have children while still in graduate school or undergraduate.
That's a good question. I'm not exactly sure. I think the stipend is the same for everyone. I don't think they acknowledge anything like that. I mean, definitely they should. But what I would advise too is maybe if if you're worried, if you have dependents or you don't want to travel, look at sponsored facilities nearby. I know the Navy has a surface center in Panama City, for example, and things like that. Maybe look for things that are closer to you, so it wouldn't be as much of an issue. They do pay, like I said, but it's $1,000 with dependents. It's not a lot of money. $1,000 a week for you to travel somewhere else, right? But they might be able to provide some additional assistance if you ask them. But as far as I don't remember ever hearing anything about any additional support.
You're right. And so the follow-up question, what I could say is that normally in hiring decisions, things of that nature cannot be taken into account. So I'm not sure about the scholarship, but normally a person, age of the person, as long as you're within the requirements, whether you be female, whether, regardless of your color, those things can't be taken into account. So that's what I would say, but I'm not a smart representative.
Neither am I, but I agree with what you said.
I don't think it would take that. I don't think it would hurt you in the application process. I do say apply and take into account just the sponsoring facilities that would be close to where you are. For your internships, I know that they do not give housing, so you would be responsible for finding anything of that sort. You have the money that they pay you throughout the year, so they will tell you things that are nearby to the base or wherever you go. So that'll help you narrow down your choices. So they give you material or things that will help you. But as far That's with you being a scholar. So I don't think they take into account any other factors that you have. So I don't think it was a trip.
All right, well, I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Thank you very much. Anyone online, you have contact information for us if you have any additional questions. We want to thank you for being a part of this informational session. If you have additional questions, just please reach out to us. We'd be happy to help. Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Bryce's comment about the research over the summer. So for me, my tour that my mentor gave me was things that are the same thing that I would see in the labs here. So I got tours of 3D printing systems, robotic systems, all of that things of that sort. And when I told him what my research area was, being introduced to him for the first time at the site visit, he kind of went over what projects they have and said, since you've already done work in this, I would probably most likely put you on a project with this. So he tried to make sure that the work I'll be doing there aligns with my research here so that it could be something that I could use. So I think sponsoring facilities and the people that they assign to you will try to work with you.
Dr. Szymanski, thank you very much for participating. Do you have any final words before we sign off?
I just thank you for having me. And yeah, if you guys have any questions, again, feel free to reach out. I'll be happy to help.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye-bye.